Okay. Hi. How are you? I'm Brian Lemma, and I've been here forever. So going on 17 years. We're really just going to go through just a little bit of information about reapplying for financial aid. Kind of informal, and then hopefully if you guys have any specific questions mainly about, renewing your aid application or anything that you need to know, between the three of us sitting here, we like to have a 1-to-1 ratio when we do these things, so we're in good shape right now. Thank you. That's probably the only time you'll laugh the entire evening. But and poor Marjorie and Edric, they've had to sit through so many of these things when I talk, and it gets so annoying after a while. Okay, so real quick, this is not an effort to take you line by line through the FAFSA, but we kind of want to hit the highlights and make sure that with the changes to the FAFSA that you guys know, making sure you're doing the right things in order to get and maximize the amount of dollars that you get. So, and obviously questions are welcome. So we'll just go through a couple of things. So obviously we give two types of financial aid. There's federal financial aid, and then there's also institutional aid, scholarships. And I speak mainly to my undergraduate friends in the room more than the graduates in that particular case. So just a couple of things that you have to have in order to be eligible. And this really shouldn't be anything new for you. Obviously, for federal aid purposes, you have to have either U.S. citizenship or permanent residency, valid Social Security number. Selective service, this is one of those crazy things where when you're 18 years old, you have to be registered for selective service in order to be eligible for financial aid. At this point, if you were not registered for selective service, we would have caught it and we would have worked with you on that. So really not anything to be concerned about. And then you have to maintain satisfactory academic progress. This is a really important thing because there are federal guidelines involving what your academic performance has to be in order to be eligible for financial aid. And in the case of an undergraduate student, if you're not eligible for federal aid, you're not eligible for institutional aid. This is a really very small population of students that run into some issues with academic progress, and we work with you, but that's an important thing to keep in mind. I just here wanted to highlight mainly the types of financial aid and the application materials. You hear us throw around need-based financial aid. So need-based financial aid is really just a simple formula. It's the total cost of attendance, which includes tuition, fees, room, board. In the case of a grad student, it's estimates for what it's going to cost you to rent an apartment, pay for food, books, travel, all of that stuff is inclusive. The EFC, which is the expected family contribution, is a calculation that we get using the FAFSA. And also for our institutional money, the CSS profile, we also collect tax returns. And it's just really a simple formula. And so when we say we meet full need, the issue that students often have is that what we say is the family contribution and what your perception of what your family can contribute is often disparate. So in a situation where there may be extenuating factors or there may be other things that are at play, that's when you would work with somebody in our office to make sure that if you have concerns about how you meet that family contribution, that you speak with us. And I just really wanted to give you an idea. This particular slide is really geared towards undergraduate students. I'm happy to take any questions about graduate students as well. And you can see basically what the loan totals are. Unless any of you in here are repeating your freshman year, your first year, what I wanted to provide was just an idea of what sort of work-study awards you would expect, and also the loan amounts based on your year in school. And then there's that really wonderful PLUS loan that parents can borrow to help cover the expected contribution. First of all, has anyone here not done their FAFSA? Okay, people that actually are going to school right now, not the people that work on the staff. You guys have all done your 17-18 FAFSA at this point? No, great, okay. Then it's not great. It's not great, but it's okay. So, sorry, I didn't mean to get so excited about the fact that you didn't do something that we told you to do. It's okay. So, you can go to FAFSA.gov. Okay, let me ask it this way. Everybody filed a FAFSA for the year we're currently in, right? Yeah. Okay, then filling out the new one's super easy because all of the credentials that you need, the FSA ID to get on and do the electronic signature, and in the case of a parent signing it, you have all of that. So it's super easy. We're going to talk about why in a second. Okay, so for renewing financial aid, if you're a graduate student, all you really need to do is go back in and do the 1718 FAFSA. For an undergraduate student, you will need to do the 1718 FAFSA, the College Scholarship Service, the CSS profile, but this year, you do not have to submit, if you submitted your tax returns this past year from your parents, you do not have to do it this year. And the reason being, which I'll talk about in a second, is that we're using the same tax year information for a second straight year. And that's kind of a significant change because it's always been 1 year previous of income, and now we're going back 2 years. So there's going to be that 1 year where we're using 2015 income twice. If you had, even though we're using the same information, we still do require the CSS profile, and we also require, if you have a non-custodial parent that completes an application so that we can look at both parents' information, that needs to be redone by the parent as well for 1718. Okay, so let's talk about the change. The biggest change, and one of the reasons we wanted to have this session, is that there's been a lot of agita around the idea of this concept of prior year. And basically what that means is that in 2016-17, you provided information either from yourself and your parents for 2015 tax year. In an effort to make the FAFSA easier and also allow more time for people to complete it, the federal government switched over to where you're now going to provide information beginning in 1718. We're going to use the same year, 2015. So moving forward, you'll always be providing income from 2 years previous. So in 1819, you'll provide 2016. So what that basically means is that there's really no reason. The FAFSA is really a couple of clicks because all of the information is there. There's also, which I believe I'll talk about on the next slide, is the concept of using your IRS data retrieval, which basically means that when you log on to the FAFSA, for those of you who haven't done it, and I won't name names, you can go in and you can indicate that you want to use the IRS data retrieval. And because the taxes were submitted to the IRS so long ago, the information will automatically all load right into the FAFSA, and it makes it super easy. So that's kind of a significant change. But one of the questions people have is, how does prior year affect my financial aid? And you would think that, for the most part, using the same information 2 years in a row would net the same financial aid award. And what I always caution students to think about, why I'd like you to make sure you fill out your application early, is that there are other factors that can change eligibility. Yes, we are using the same income information. However, your family size, the number of people in college, some of the other dynamics, that your family's total assets, some of those things are really going to still be a snapshot in time. So while we're using the same income, you could have one fewer person in your household, you could have a sibling that graduated from college, and so those factors do impact your eligibility. So now I've started doing evaluations of continuing students' financial aid, and what I'm finding is that, while some of the behind-the-scenes calculations are a little different, for the most part, you can expect a very similar award unless, again, there's something like a change in your household dynamic. And if you have questions, I'd love to answer those for you. So here's just some information where you can get, places where you can get more information. Obviously, I put our website at the top. Now, our website can be a little dense at times, but all of the information you need, all the links for applications, contact information to our office, it really is all there. Studentaid.gov is really another great resource because it has all of the information regarding all of the federal aid programs. And again, this is a really brief overview because I'm hoping that we'll have some time for questions. Well, obviously we'll have time for questions, but and this is just some information on contacting our office. You can still, obviously there are lots of resources out there, so even though you may not be an incoming student, brand new undergraduate student, doesn't mean that there may not be opportunities for you to find other sources of funding through outside scholarships and foundations and like that. So those are things that, over your spring break, since you're probably just going home and getting some reading in and not going out and doing anything like really fun or with a lot of sun or anything, right? It's a good opportunity for you to you're looking at me like, yeah, what is he, crazy? I'm actually joking. I'm hoping you're doing something fun. I really do. Sincerely hope that. But there we do find students who return from one year to the next and have resources that they can use to help cover, part of their family contribution or other expenses. So with that, I'd love to answer questions. You in particular said you had questions, right?
I did, but
All right.
I can wait if you guys have anything
What a gentleman.
that you wanted to ask before I jump into a couple really specific things that
I mean, if
apply
your
to
question
me.
is, can I have another piece of pizza? You definitely can, but you're going to be required to ask a question first.
I don't really understand why they're making this change, or like what it's like really doing.
What, the 2-year change?
Yeah.
2 years back? Okay, so this isn't necessarily geared towards your typical Georgetown student, but there were a lot of people from year to year who were leaving money on the table. So what I mean by that is maybe students from economically challenged families who maybe, you have to remember, so this past year when you applied, you couldn't apply till January because the tax year had to end before you could put the information in, right? So what that was doing is that was causing a smaller window for you to be able to do the FAFSA and get a financial aid award, especially if you're an incoming student and you're trying to make a decision and you have a May 1st deadline. And a lot of students, because the form could be complicated and because when students were applying in January or February, the IRS data retrieval where you can pull everything in from the IRS was not available because the taxes were just filed. And it was becoming a complicated form, and there was a good number of people, I believe as high as like 10%, that were just not filling out the form. And those were students in some cases who maybe they were going to a community college and maybe that Pell Grant they would have gotten would have actually covered their bill, but they didn't apply. And so the federal government, this was an effort under the last administration to try to encourage as many people to apply and make it as easy as possible. So it seems a little, it's a little concerning, and I understand, because when you start your 2017-18 academic year, you're going to have, the tax year we're using will have been over for almost 3 years, right? And so one of the questions that we get is, my parents lost their job in 2016 or even in 2017, what is that going to do to my financial aid? And the truth is that even though a FAFSA is based on a particular year, there's always a way that you can work with our office to appeal a circumstance. We get these all the time. So we meet on a weekly basis and we look at families who maybe lost their job and their income moving forward is going to be less than it was previously. And so that sort of allays some of the fears I think that families have about providing information that's so old. But that was really the driving force. Good question.
Can you briefly explain appeals and how that would work with your financial aid counselor?
Sure, yeah. So if you have, there's no dumb question. So there are a lot of times when we'll get questions about a circumstance and they're wondering if that's a situation that might warrant a reconsideration of financial aid, and a lot of times it's not, and we'll tell you right up front that it's not. But there's a lot of, I guess what I would say is, if you ever have any circumstance for which you think you might be eligible for more financial aid based on that, you should always talk to the counselor in our office, and we'll guide you through that process. We have an appeals committee. We meet every Wednesday afternoon. So anytime somebody sends any consideration for any request for reconsideration of financial aid, if it's in by the close of business on Monday, typically we'll review it that week. So it can be anything from loss of job, change of job. It could be a sick grandparents moving in with your parents. I mean, it can be a whole host of factors. Anything basically that might make it harder for your family to contribute to your education, we can talk to you about. And if we can do something about it, we certainly will, and we review them all on a case-by-case basis. Yeah?
Could you explain the difference between a direct subsidized loan
Of course.
and unsubsidized?
Absolutely, yeah. So a subsidized loan is a federally subsidized loan that requires you to have financial needs. So when you file your FAFSA, if you have that slide I showed you earlier where you have this cost of attendance and this family contribution, whenever there's a need, according to the federal government, you can take a subsidized loan. The biggest difference is a subsidized loan does not accrue any interest at any point while you're in school. Okay? So as long as you maintain half-time enrollment continuously from when you start, when you go into repayment 6 months after you leave school, hopefully with a degree, that loan will only then start accruing interest. So whatever you borrowed, you'll be paying back exactly that amount, not a penny more, okay? An unsubsidized loan is also a very low interest rate, the same rate as the subsidized loan, but from the time the loan is dispersed, it accrues interest off of whatever amounts dispersed. And what happens is, when you get out of school and your loan goes into repayment, any interest that was not paid, that you didn't pay while you were in school, gets added on to the principal at that point. So if you have $1,000 of interest that accrues over 4.5 years, that would get added to your principal, and you pay back the original amount you borrowed plus that. Okay, so even if you don't, you may have had, you may have had outside scholarships, or you may have had a really good financial aid award, and maybe you didn't get a loan. It doesn't always mean you can't have a loan. It just means that we didn't offer you a loan because it was either replaced with something else, or, So if you ever think, well, I don't have a loan in my award and I need a few dollars for books or something like that, you should let us know. We're always going to guide you through we're always going to make sure that you get a subsidized loan before an unsubsidized loan whenever possible, so that you always get the best available loan. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so for, I'm a grad student and I already filled out the 2017-2018
Yep.
FAFSA. Is it possible to update with 2016 taxes, or is just prior year?
Well, okay, so there is no scenario where a student or a parent can put in a different year. It asks specifically, only the school will do that. But as a graduate student, you don't need to worry about it, because you don't get anything that has subsidy.
Okay.
So you could make $1 million one year and $20 the next. It's not
So
going to
that change doesn't
because
matter
you're eligible for an unsubsidized loan and a graduate plus, and those
Okay.
are not tied to any sort of financial need at all.
Gotcha.
All the FAFSA
Okay.
does for you is make sure that you pass the checks like citizenship, you never defaulted on a loan, and those
Gotcha.
things, and that's really all.
Okay.
So
That
there's
makes
no reason
sense,
to do
because I was
that.
confused about that
Yeah.
before, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Other questions?
What happens to be an outside scholarship? Does that affect how much aid I get from Georgetown?
Well, it depends. So this happens a lot. Students bring in lots of outside scholarships. Sometimes they get them every year through school. So our policy is we have to count whatever outside scholarship you get as a resource towards meeting your costs for that year. We do have, if you noticed when you applied last year, you had potentially a student contribution and then there's a parent contribution. Typically what that means is that a student has a contribution based on kind of a Georgetown assigned number, which is a summer savings expectation, what we think you can contribute from one year to the next. So when you get an outside scholarship, typically what we're going to do is we're going to reduce your student contribution or any adjustments we've made to your parent contribution above and beyond the FAFSA to absorb that outside scholarship. After that, then we would go towards either reducing or replacing your work study or your subsidized loan. Bottom line is, we try really hard never to touch your Georgetown scholarship when you get an outside scholarship. And if you get to the point where we're going to do that, we'll normally ask if you can contact your scholarship, your sponsor, to see if they can defer it to a different year so that you can maximize those dollars. Good question.
Any other questions?
When you were talking about like the appeal thing, did you just mean that you can like appeal it before like your account gets filled, or is that like any time during the year?
No, you can, well, I would say if a change has already happened, there's no reason to wait. Obviously, we have requests for consideration throughout the entire year. I would say at the point when something changes, that's when you want to contact us. Now, that doesn't always mean we're going to do something right then. It might be that we'll give you a timeline, like, for example, sometimes when a student will say, my dad lost his job yesterday, and normally that's not enough time for us to be able to get really good information in order to, because we work with numbers, to be able to put something in place. So we may say, all right, come back in, on this date, and then we'll go through the whole process then. But you don't have to wait. I mean, if something, like right now, if you have concerns about what your financial aid is going to be next year, you don't have to wait until the summertime, or until you're billed over the summer for the fall. You can give us that information now. We'll add it to your current application for next year, and we'll review that before we send out the initial award, which would go out in June. Okay. Next question, Marjorie answers. She looks really comfortable.
Making sure I'm slowly.
Yeah. Any other questions?
For this coming academic year, do I have to fill out, as a grad student, do I have to fill out an additional application beyond the FAFSA with
Nope.
you guys specifically, or
Nope.
just as
It's
long
only
as
for
it's
the
in?
summer. If you're taking summer classes, we do have like an internal application that's on our website.
Yeah, I'm applying for funding through my program for a summer program I'm doing,
Okay.
so I'll be
Yeah.
looking to do that.
So, but for you, like if you've used all of your unsubsidized loan and maybe some grad plus, if you're gonna take classes in the summer, as long as you're enrolled in the minimum requirements, you can still do, your FAFSA for 16-17 is still good for summer.
And your credit check on your plus loan also.
Right,
Okay.
so you can basically fill out the form and say, I want X dollars, and we'll just increase the loan for you.
Okay.
That's it.
But you need at least 3 credits.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? You're dying to have another piece of pizza, aren't you? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
If that's all the questions, thank you for coming. There's papers up front, like the personal finance guide and everything else that comes, this is made like that. Our next workshop is called Salary Negotiations in the Colleague Career Center on March 15th at 5 to 6 p.m. We have all our social media information on those pages over there. If you want to follow us for future events, please eat some pizza, and thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
sure,
Thank
and
you.
we're open until 5 every day, so if you ever wanna like sit and go over your specific information, you should come and see us. What program are you in?
I'm in